what's up gamers, and especially Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles fans? Obviously, I anticipated Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge and already reviewed it months ago. Excellent and fun beat-em-up game, so check out that one when you got the chance. In the meantime, let's talk about another Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game, or collection I should say, which I anticipated for this year already, this year to be exact, since I did a short video on it and mentioned it several times, and that is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the Cowabunga collection. Obviously, I bought the version on Nintendo Switch, as I said before many times, since, well, I like being able to play this game at home and on the go, and why not, right? Obviously, as you know, I'm a fan of the old school Ninja Turtle games, beat 'em up, arcade style, co-op multiplayer, good stuff. The Ninja Turtles franchise, on the other hand, over the past several years has been very hit and miss, mostly miss because, well, they try all these new ideas and they just haven't worked. So I guess they figured, why not give the fans exactly what they wanted when the Ninja Turtles franchise games were at the height of their popularity and at their finest. And that's exactly what this collection does for fans, of myself included, that grew up on these great games as well as the old school cartoons. And does this collection live up to the hype? You bet your ass it does. So let's take a look. Now, as you know, it includes every single old school Ninja Turtles game. From the arcade games, yep, the classic beat 'em up ones, the very first one that started it all in 1989, that you were able to get on Xbox Live, which I still have luckily, but unfortunately is no longer available. And it is a really fun arcade-style beat 'em up game. Can get a little monotonous, and of course, 4 people at the same time on the same screen can get a little chaotic like anything else, but come on, it's where it's all at. It's a little short, and of course you get unlimited continues. All you gotta do is just press one of the buttons to give yourself unlimited amount of continues, and you hear that sound effect, but come on. It's fun, it's monotonous, but it's just enjoyable and satisfying as ever to beat the crap out of Foot Clan. All the moves are great, boss fights are fun. This is Ninja Turtles, and it's where it's all at right here. As well as the second arcade game, Ninja Turtles, Turtles in Time. I actually have never played this one, at least not that I remember. I remember playing the first one, but this one was interesting to see where it all started before, of course, we got the console ports. And it's fun. It's very different, considering I played most of the time the Super Nintendo version, not to jump the gun. And, well, again, you can play up to 4 players at the same time. So this is the only way you're going to be able to do it on this version of the game, even though it's of course shorter than any of the console ports. So fascinating to check out if you got the chance and have this collection, as well as the NES ports of these games. Yeah, of course, that first one that everybody seems to love or love to hate. Yeah, I honestly had a hard time with this game just as much as anybody else. I enjoy it, but I also hate it. What else do you expect? I mean, it's a side-scrolling type of game, and most people were expecting the arcade game first time when they announced that they were getting a Ninja Turtles game on the NES, and this is not quite what everybody expected. It's playable and everything, but god is it frustrating, especially that underwater level where you have to disable the bombs. Thank god you're able to switch between 4 different turtles. That's the only unique feature with this game. Once one turtle gets low on health, well, just switch to the other one that has almost or near full health, and there you go. You'll be able to beat this stage, no problem. But it gets even harder later on in the game. It becomes a maze, enemies are tougher to take out, and of course they respawn. What else do you expect? It's going to frustrate the living hell out of you, which brings me to the number 1 key feature that's helpful with beating this game. The save feature, which you can put at any point in this game, and then being able to load, like say you die right after you're saved at that point, and there you go, you can load up and be able to go from there. Or, if you press the top L button, you can rewind up to 10 seconds backwards. So there you go. That definitely helps when you can't make these stupid jumps, or if you die too many times. Yeah. Call it cheating all you want to, people, but in a game that's hard as hell like this, I honestly don't feel bad at all. I mean, it's the only way I'm going to be able to beat this hard as hell game, and it's the only way I ever did finally. Thank God. It still frustrated me to death, but well, I finally did it, and I finally got to see the ending for real, and the Shredder boss fight at the end is surprisingly easy. Yeah, I guess they figured we tortured gamers enough and frustrated the hell out of them. Let's take it easy on them this time around, and like anybody else would say, what the hell? Really? To this ending? no comments there.
And might I add, yes, you can also use the save and rewind feature in every single game in this collection. This makes beating some of the hardest games in this collection a hell of a lot easier. There are some other features that I'll get into in a little bit, but as I said, call it cheating all you want to, but honestly, I don't feel bad at all, especially for trying to beat the hardest as hell games, and this one was no exception to that.
Ninja Turtles 2 obviously is, well, kind of a poor man's NES port of the arcade game, and you got to accept and excuse this one, because really, you can't expect this arcade game to be able to be ported onto an NES cartridge. I mean, the NES graphics and gameplay is limited, and you can play up to 2 players at the same time. Even though they added 2 extra stages, there are some other flaws with this port too as well, such as no unlimited lives. If you die and lose all your lives, you go back to the beginning of the level, with limited continues as well. Not to mention, in between losing lives, you can't select between a different turtle, you are stuck with that turtle throughout the whole game. And as I said, only a 2-player option, no 4-player. Yeah, that kinda sucks, but what do you expect? And in this port, I do have to also mention that the Pizza Hut logos they probably remember from the NES version are taken off of this. This is an improvement over the first game being more arcade style, but it's still kinda just getting there. It is somewhat enjoyable, but it can get incredibly difficult as well. So, yeah, it's getting better, but not until, of course, you get to Ninja Turtles 3 The Manhattan Project. This one was more of my cup of tea right here. And it can be really challenging, but I do like the fact that every time you die, just by losing a life, you can switch to a different turtle as an option. Yeah, this was a fun, unique adventure game, and it's of course not based on any arcade game, but it was very enjoyable. I love all the boss fights, and it's got a pretty good length to it. And then you got the Game Boy titles. Yes, there was not 1, not 2, but 3 of them. And, well, for the time in the 90s, these were probably pretty good, and I gotta be honest, I never actually played these too much. I understand these were on old black and white handheld consoles, and to be honest, it hasn't aged well. And I can't see myself going back to these, so if you're curious enough, check it out. They're okay, I guess. And then you got the tournament fighter games, yes. Starting with the NES version, which, boy, I never knew this one even existed. And I'm glad I never played this or even thought about it, because, yeah, this one's pretty dull as dirt. Don't quite know what it is, but I don't think the NES was really up to making fighting games. I mean, they did good with, like, Double Dragon, even though that's more of a beat-em-up game, but yeah, I don't think this one aged very well at all. It seems more like a prototype, really. I mean, the selection of characters isn't that great. I mean, I'll give credit to the graphics. It's decent for NES standards, and the sound effects is pretty much what you'd expect. Not much to say. Pretty dull, not fun to play, not many special moves or anything, but it's NES, so what do you expect? If you're curious enough, check it out, but for me, I'm about to fall asleep if I play this any further. Now, the Super Nintendo version, yes, this one is my favorite. I mean, the sound effects, everything, the controls is just very crisp and fluent. It's almost like a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles version of Street Fighter, and that's pretty much how it plays. Special moves, kicking the shit out of your opponent, one-on-one matches, tournament, story mode. It's all just basically fighting matches, and the object is to whip the shit out of your opponent, choose difficulty options. And as fun as it is, this can get pretty damn hard, especially in the harder difficulties, and as you could tell, I pretty much suck at this. But this one is the best version. Then you got one on Sega Genesis, and, well, as good as the graphics look, and of course, like anything else, it has that Sega Genesis type of sound effect and feel to it, it just seems like Super Nintendo did it better with the beat-em-ups and fighting games. Just my opinion right here, people. This one just feels a little clunkier. And the graphics and background effects are good, don't get me wrong, but there's just one problem. The difficulty. Yeah. I mean, the Super Nintendo one does have its share of difficulty, but at least with that one I can get farther on the easiest difficulty. This game, on the other hand, I could barely make it past the first opponent on one-player mode. Yeah, of course, it's not the same exact game. I mean, it's very different story-wise. And on tournament mode, forget it. I get my ass kicked. Even when I change the difficulty on easiest, I still can't make it past the first guy on tournament mode. I mean, what the hell? I could barely figure out how to do the special moves,
let alone try to beat the opponent. Not to mention the Super Nintendo version has a bigger selection of characters. This one, I'm sorry to say, just wasn't for me. Not sure if there was something I wasn't doing right, but either way, if I play this anymore, I'm going to get frustrated to the maximum. So, in other words, in my opinion, when it comes to Konami games, the Super Nintendo version just always seems to win the 16-bit battle. And same goes with Turtles in Time. Yes, as you know, there were 2 ports of Turtles in Time, both on the Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis, which, as you know, is called Hyperstone Heist. And did I say it's a Sega Genesis version of Turtles in Time? Well, gameplay-wise, it bears a lot of similarities. The opening scene almost bears resemblance to it, except it doesn't involve time travel. Instead, it involves the Hyperstones, which apparently shrinks the Statue of Liberty and the city of Manhattan. So, yeah, there's no time travel involved. But it reuses a lot of the same music, level designs are very similar, throws in a shit ton of Foot Clans, and the gameplay design is very similar too as well. But each level, of course, is broken up into several parts. But there's not as many boss fights in this game as the arcade or Super Nintendo one. Yeah, you got a few that you're probably familiar with, like Leatherhead, Rocksteady, Baxter Stockman, and then Tatsu, who's, in case you don't know, is Shredder's right-hand man. But come on, this is really all they can come up with, and then they have to recycle the same ones in the later level. I mean, what's up with that? Seriously? You have a shit ton of Ninja Turtles villains, and you end up recycling them. I really don't get that. Then you also do get Krang, and then eventually Super Shredder. The gameplay and beat-em-up part of the game is fun, but I don't find it as much fun as the Super Nintendo one. It just seems that, once again, Super Nintendo, as I said, just won this fight fair and square. The punching and everything just feels a little more clunky, as opposed to Super Nintendo, which feels a lot more crisp, and just straight up more satisfying with that sound effect. It just feels a lot more fluent and fun. This one is good, but there's not as much move variety, considering the Sega Genesis only had 3 buttons and no top R and L buttons either. And don't get me wrong, it's fun to play, and you do have the 2-player co-op option like the Super Nintendo version does once again. It is a little lengthier, don't get me wrong, and the Super Shredder battle at the end does spare a lot of similarities, but I feel like it falls a little short. So, a fun game to play, and if you're curious enough, check it out. But, as I said, you want the best version of Turtles in Time? Yes. This is one of the few occasions where the console version outbeats the arcade counterpart.
You already know this one is my favorite. Sound effects and everything are great. Leveling, the boss fights, everything is just grade A perfect in this one. So, if you want the best Ninja Turtles experience, go for this one.
I cannot stress it any more there.
Now also, I have to mention you not only get the US ports of these games, you also get the Japanese port. If you press the right button, you can bring them up. It's pretty fascinating to see, actually, and I like how a lot of these collections do this. So, yeah, nice acknowledgement right there for not only the US versions, but where these games actually come from.
Now, getting back to the game mods, as I mentioned before with the save and rewind features, there's several more that I have to mention. Yes, each game, as you probably noticed, gets a set of different mods to enhance or, in some cases, make the gameplay a lot easier. Like God Mode, for example. Some of the hard as hell games, it probably does make it easier, but come on, in some of these arcade beat-em-up games, it just really takes away the fun if you can't take any damage or lose any of your health or lives. I mean, what good is challenge right there if you're not applying it? It would help if it was in the first Ninja Turtles game, but unfortunately no such luck there. Not even an option to start at a certain level, in which, yes, some of the games actually have that option. And may I ask, what is the point of this, really? That just takes the fun and challenge out of this, which takes out the integrity of playing this game all the way through, in which you can feel like you actually accomplished something. I will say it's nice that every NES game in this collection, you can get rid of the slowdowns and the flickering sprites. Which, yeah, I'm not gonna lie, was a big common problem with a lot of NES games, so yeah, that's a necessary fix right there. And getting back to the arcade titles one more time, yes, they even added in Nightmarish mode. What is it? It's just as it sounds, more enemies, which means, well, a complete nightmare. No comments there. And you should also take note of the default aspect ratio. That is because this is what every game in this collection looks like when you start it up. This isn't a bad thing because you can actually add some border outlines, or you can change the aspect ratio to full screen to get a little bit less of the border effect, or go completely widescreen if you don't want any border at all. There's also a filter change option unless you want to change the contrasting of every game. I personally don't see the point of this, but I guess if you want to make your game look as old school, that's what I'm assuming this is for. And thanks to the latest update, which I'll mention a few more of these in a little bit, there's also an option to change the Game Boy games and add a little bit of color to them. That's pretty cool. There's tons of other bonuses too as well.
You get the soundtrack audio tapes, which I really wish you'd be able to play these in the menu, similar to how you were able to on Mario 3D All-Stars with their music. I mean, radical right here, man. Not only you get that, but you also can look at the different box arts of each game. And man, looking back at this stuff, I wish I held on to these boxes. As well as the manuals. Wow. Want to talk about nostalgia overload right here. And as well as being able to play on your own and locally with another human player, you can also play online.
And well, originally, this was the selection of games you were able to play online with, but thanks to a few updates, as I mentioned before, they added the Super Nintendo version of Turtles in Time. Cowabunga to that. And well, it still seems like a small collection of games to play online. This leads to one of the game's many flaws. The lags. Yeah.
A lot of times, it lags like crazy. I really hope and wish they fix this one day, because that would be a damn shame if they don't. I mean, especially since the evolution of internet and online gaming, isn't this the way we want to be able to play and relive our childhood memories right here? In this kind of arcade style, teaming up and taking down some Foot Clan, beating the crap out of enemies, and eventually taking down boss fights and Shredder? Yeah, of course. Well, with these problems that persist, it's just not fun. So, hope they fix it one day, because if they don't, well, that would not be radical at all. But otherwise, yes, this is an awesome radical collection. You can get it, as I said, on multiple consoles, even download it. But obviously, I got mine physically the day it came out on August 30th of 2022. And I can't say I'm disappointed at all, mostly. And, well, I can say is Cowabunga, because I love being able to play it at home and on the go. So, my final verdict is a rockin' weird Wii Motion Plus up and a playing weird mode up. Trust me, it's a radical awesome time. So, till next time, happy gaming.